Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
Some people do stupid things. Don't do stupid things. You are about to hear my opinion. Do your own research.
I told you. The president's doomsday plane, the E-4B, has just landed near Washington. The last time this happened was on 9/11. Are you listening to me yet? The 45th is a 9. The 47th is 11. 9/11. This number, this name, this is all confirmation. Everything this year, everything is coming together. Synchronicity on top of synchronicity. I mean, the sole survivor of Flight 171 was given the bed number 11. And when you add up the numbers 1, 7, and 1, you get 9. 9/11. 2025 is a 9-year in numerology. So be sure to be extra careful this July 4th. And for those trying to plan ahead, remember, November is the 11th month, and Thanksgiving falls on the 27th. 2 + 7 = 9. 9/11.
All three of my names have 7 letters in them. What does that mean? Does that mean something? Is that like when you go to the casino and you get all 7s, you win? Does that mean that I'm lucky? Am I gonna win? This numerology stuff really spins my head, but I feel like they have the answer that they want, and then they do whatever is necessary to find that answer. But everything else that doesn't equal that answer is left out. Yeah, numerology is wild.
If you're not familiar with what that is, that's SpaceX Starship 36. It's scheduled to launch later this month, so they set up a static fire test in Starbase, Texas. Upon doing that, it exploded into pieces. You heard what I said. It exploded into pieces. The video is incredible to watch. Take a look at this. Check this out.
Probably.
Flash warning.
Even the
Here
other
it
day when
comes.
they. Whoa!
Wow.
That's not good.
No, that's not good at all. Unbelievable. The explosion was so intense, it sent a massive fireball into the sky that could be seen for miles. There were no reported injuries, thankfully, at this time. Engineers were conducting at the time a routine fire test of SpaceX Starship 36. Hopefully, they can pick up all the pieces and figure out what went wrong. But again, that was insane to watch.
Yeah, that certainly was an incredible thing to see. I mean, it sucks, but at the same time, this is why we do tests and we run experiments to find out what could possibly go wrong and how to make it not go wrong. And they're going to get all kinds of data from this and figure out what the problem was and be able to correct that. So that way, this kind of stuff doesn't happen when they're on their way to Mars.
You know, now that you mention it, the SpaceX rocket explosion that really upset Elon Musk. Apparently it set his Mars travel back a few years. I'm wondering if there's some of this debris out there, and could that be a piece?
So I'm not completely sure what piece he was talking about. I just saw that it was Container Guy, and it's been a minute since we've had Container Guy on the channel. And Elon Musk, yeah, he's probably pretty upset, but like I said, he's a realist and he's going to take this information and figure out how to make that not happen again.
From the CIA, How to Start a Riot Guide shows the hiring of professional criminals and agitators to pit ethnic minorities against government, then trigger riots. Here we have specific jobs will be assigned to elements in order to create a, quote, martyr, close quote, for the cause, leading the demonstrators into a confrontation with authorities, sounds like George Floyd, so as to provoke riots or shootings which may cause the death of one or more persons who would become martyrs, a situation which should be taken advantage of immediately against the regime so as to create greater conflicts. We are professionals at doing this in other nations. I would assume that some of our liberal politicians are on some of these committees in DC, so they know how this works, and they're using it for their own political gain. These protesters are nothing more than CIA assets. You recruit them, you work them, you turn them. They're useful idiots. That's it.
Actual declassified CIA documents on how to manipulate the masses by using riots. Yeah, that's happening. Remember we talked about Gladio? not too long ago, and we've said many times that a lot of events that happen are orchestrated by the higher ups in order to create a specific outcome for themselves. All the world is indeed a stage.
He classified a trove of documents suggesting there was a Chinese plot to sway the 2020 election in Biden's favor. An intel source says in August 2020, the CCP tried to flood America with fake driver's licenses, then give them to Chinese nationals so they could vote for the big guy using fraudulent mail-ins. A month after the plot was discovered, Border Patrol flagged 20,000 licenses at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. These were scannable with credible barcodes. Some even had the same photo and bio slapped onto them. Thankfully, they foiled the plot. 20,000 ballots could have had a big impact. Remember, Biden won Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, all within that range. It's easy to understand why Beijing wanted Joe. They had the whole Biden family on their payroll. Meanwhile, Trump's squeezing Chinese heads against the walls with tariffs. But why are we just finding out about this now? The FBI got this intel before the election, and instead of investigating it further, they buried it. Former director Chris Wray even testified to Congress, and instead of saying the word China, he just screamed Russia, Russia, Russia.
The intelligence community's consensus is that Russia continues to try to influence our elections, primarily through what we would call malign foreign influence, primarily to denigrate Vice President Biden.
If this was a Moscow fake ID plot to help Trump, Wray would have held a press conference. He should be hauled back to Washington to testify immediately. If Democrats actually care about democracy, they'd want answers. And the media is complicit, too. Reuters ran their own fact check saying no evidence the licenses were meant to influence the election. Here's MSNBC's quote: Trump's lie about Chinese election interference is debunked. Its effects still linger. We'll see if they issue a correction. Cash's FBI has turned over all the documents to Senator Chuck Grassley for him to review. The story's far from over.
Isn't that a juicy piece of information that just came out yesterday? That's insane. So they had this information and just frickin' buried it, and they ran the whole Russia, Russia, Russia thing as a distraction. Oh, we have to investigate this. Just put that over there. And it just got buried. But they found 20,000 fake IDs. Makes me wonder how many of them, slipped by. I mean, if they actually did.
There's an island in the Pacific Ocean that barely anyone talks about. Yet it's guarded by the Mexican Navy. No tourists, no fishing, no entry. Its name is Isla Clarion. It lies more than 400 miles off the coast of Mexico, part of the Revilla-Gigedo archipelago. But this island is different. It's completely off limits, covered in volcanic rock, dense jungle, and strange radar installations. It looks abandoned, but satellite images show something else. Airstrips, towers, and what appear to be military bunkers. Some say it's just a testing site. Others think it's used for deep-sea surveillance, or maybe UFO research. But here's where it gets weird. Some researchers believe Isla Clarion sits atop a magnetic vortex, just like the Bermuda Triangle. No journalist has ever been allowed to visit. Fishermen avoid it, and no one truly knows what's happening out there. So ask yourself, what is Isla Clarion hiding?
A naval base. Which isn't that surprising because there's tons of islands off the coast of California that we're not allowed to go to because they're military installations. It's basically the same thing. I think they said there's like 9 people that are there, stationed there. So, yeah. Ooh.
Okay, hear me out. Why do so many old castles, cathedrals, and ancient buildings look less like places of worship and more like machines? Look at them. Giant spires that reach up to the sky like antennas. They have the copper domes that would be perfect conductors. They have stained glass windows shaped like frequency patterns, and in even the floor plans match up with sacred geometry and like energy grids, right? And now get this. Okay. Some of these buildings were supposedly built with hand tools and horse and buggies and carts and shit. But today we can't replicate them with modern tech. All our buildings are square and dull and boring. Bro, make it make sense. Now, here's the thing. What if these weren't just churches or castles, right? Like, what if they were part of an old world energy system, like pulling power straight from the earth, from the sky, like from sound, like straight from the ether? And if that's true, what happened to it? Who shut it down? Why did they bury it?
Money and power. It's money and power. I do believe that there is a possibility that these cathedrals were used as healing centers once upon a time, a long, long time ago, and that stuff was just pulled out of the ether, energy and power and all of those things. And then people were like, hey, I can capitalize on this. And then they did over time, and it became something else. Where it was a place of healing, it became a place of give me your money and your brain so we can control you. That's just my opinion.
World War III will never happen because of the US, Russia, or China. It will only happen when the Antarctic Ice Treaty is broken. Antarctica is the most protected continent in the world. Why? Well, because it holds some of the biggest secrets known to mankind. So secret that 98% of the continent is off limits. Sure, you can visit Antarctica, but only to designated areas. The rest of the continent, which is 1.5 times bigger than the United States, is controlled by every government in the world for research, and each government gets their own piece. We have pyramids in Egypt, hidden in the ocean, and even on Mars. Yes, the planet, but now also in Antarctica. How is this possible? Scientists claim that the ice has formed over 34 million years ago, which at that point humans were still tiny little primitive monkeys. But what's crazy is that Piri Reis map was discovered in 1929 at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, Turkey. Originally the map was made in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis himself. This map clearly shows Antarctica in the map, in which Antarctica was only technically discovered in the 1820s. But the crazy thing is, if you take a closer look, Antarctica has absolutely no ice on it. You can see animals like birds, bulls, humans, and even monsters. The Piri Reis map suggests that Antarctica might have not had any ice on it just 512 years ago. What's interesting about the Piri Reis map and other maps at that time was that those maps were actually copies of older maps that predates thousands of years ago.
But these ancient maps that I'm speaking about all contain extremely accurate relative longitudes, and that suggests that somebody was mapping the world long before us.
I don't know, man. We're kind of staring down the barrel of World War III right now. There's some weird things happening, and it doesn't look very pleasant, but I like the way he's going with that because there are so many secrets in Antarctica that we're not allowed to know about, and all of the countries are in on it. They're like, hey, don't tell them this. But why? Why not? What's going on down there? God, I'd love to know. I mean, I'm not going to go down to Antarctica because I don't like the cold, but it'd be nice to know.
Do you want to hear about the greatest imposters of human history?
Please.
Queen Elizabeth I was actually a man.
What?
I don't believe it.
So when she was 9 years old, she was sent off to a town called Bisley because there's a plague going on. King Henry, he hadn't seen her for many years. And so he was out on a hunting trip close to Bisley. And so he's like, I'm going to go visit my daughter. On his way there, Queen Elizabeth got sick and died. King Henry VIII obviously had a very bad temper. She's looking for a girl that looks close to Queen Elizabeth. Can't find any girl. But Queen Elizabeth's friend, they said a very pretty boy, red hair. So they dressed him up like Queen Elizabeth. And then King Henry got there. There's no suspicion. She became queen. If you look back, she had no weakness of a woman, but the mind of a man. She would always wear a high collar. She refused to get married. But the kicker, hundreds of years later, in Bisley, there's a graveyard very close to the house where Queen Elizabeth grew up. There's an unmarked grave. And when they excavated it, there was a little girl, the same age as when Queen Elizabeth would have died. She was wearing Tudor clothes, like royalty clothes,
yeah.
but an unmarked grave.
Wait, what? I mean, I guess that would explain, never marrying, never having any children, although they say it was because she didn't want any, issues as far as her reign. She didn't want succession and all of that stuff. But for her to have possibly been a replacement dude, that's pretty wild.
1970, that they changed a bunch of their signs all over America in 1970 due to the decay of their signs. So this is why they were changing it. As you can see, the first part is new and clean, so I'm assuming that's where they were trying to say they started there, changed those letters, and they left the Y to show that it was decaying. Okay, now if you look at the marks here, and you'll see that right here, there's where the N would be. Here's where another N would be. Now what it looks like is that they moved the Y over and then took the picture so that it would have space for an E. Okay, now if an E was actually there, wouldn't you have a shape like an E coming up this way and back that way? But it's not. You can see a Y. Here's the line for the Y, where the Y should be right here. If you just move it over just a little bit, there's the line with the Y.
I've heard this theory before, and I'm not old enough to remember whether it was Penny at one point, but why on earth would a company go to the trouble of removing a letter and then remounting it elsewhere in a concrete building just to show its decay? That doesn't make much sense. And if you look at those anchor points, it could have definitely been an E very easily. But if you remember it being Penny, let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, hit that like button and consider subscribing.
NASA erased the original moon landing footage. Not lost, not stolen. They just taped over it. In 2006, NASA confirmed that the highest quality recordings of Apollo 11, the first time humans walked on the moon, were wiped and reused. 700 boxes of tapes gone to save money. So what we see today is not the real footage. It's a camera pointed at a TV screen. The most iconic moment in human history overwritten. Why would NASA erase proof that we landed on the moon? And more importantly, why does no one talk about it?
Oh, honey, we're talking about it. Trust and believe that we are talking about it. What gives? Now, I am still team we went to the moon, and I believe that we did all that stuff, though there are lots of questions that I have, like why would they tape over all of this footage? Kind of makes my brain do funny things.
Why don't you explain how we got footage of the lander taking off? Did we have fiber optic space cables sending footage back to Earth? Answer that question, genius. Okay. This one's actually a little bit complicated, so I'm going to explain it as fast as I can so that you can actually sit through an entire video. The camera used on the moon was built by Westinghouse. It was designed to be small, light, and able to work seamlessly in the lunar environment, aka survive really big changes in temperature and also automatically adjust for light because the moon is really bright. The bigger challenge was data. Television at the time broadcast in 30 frames per second using 4 to 5 megahertz of bandwidth. Apollo's transmission system, called the Unified S-band because it worked in the S-band portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, needed to send voice and telemetry data as well, so it could only spare 500 kilohertz for the television. To make it work, they filmed a slightly lower frame rate so that it would be less data to transfer back to Earth. Transferring that data was done by antenna. That's the big mesh thing on the lunar rover, and also this full antenna that they actually set up on the moon. Now, the footage that you're talking about, which is the Apollo 17 lunar module ascent stage leaving the surface, there was also a camera on the lunar rover and an antenna. Remember that they had every possible piece of data available on the Apollo missions. So one guy actually controlled that camera from Earth, anticipating the moment they would lift off and the rate of ascent, which they could calculate because they had all the information, and tracked them leaving the moon's surface. But what about relay stations? I can practically hear you asking, because on Earth, television stations need relay points to get their data from one point to another. We need relay points on Earth because the curvature of the Earth limits how far radio waves can travel before they're interrupted. There is nothing interrupting communications from the moon to Earth. It is a straight shot. It's going to lose some power in the transmission, but that's why there's giant receiving dishes on Earth and many tracking stations, because don't forget the Earth does rotate. And that's how we got the footage of Apollo 17 leaving the moon. I know there's like 5 different things in there that are going to be like no-nos for conspiracy theorists, but a girl's got to try, right?
Did you see that tiny little machine doing all of that sciencey stuff? That was a really tiny little machine. Do you remember the camcorders in the 80s and early 90s? Those big old ones, the home VHS camcorders you carry on your shoulder? They're like 10 pounds and they're this damn big, right? How'd that little thing do that? From the frickin' moon. This is where my brain does crazy things. And then I remember that DARPA was established in 1958. Well, at least that's when they tell us it was established, and DARPA's got tech that's decades ahead of anything that's public knowledge. So there's a very good possibility that a lot of that stuff was done there. And then they're like, hey, here's some science to why this little thing did all the big things. Yeah. Crazy things happening in my brain.
This was not, I repeat, not a controlled demolition. Trust me, the experts say so. This is a real controlled demolition. Apples and oranges. Those two don't even look the same at all. You guys are crazy. Again, is not and was not a controlled demolition. Trust me, the government says so. This is a real controlled demolition. You conspiracy theorists and spreading your misinformation, this don't even look the same. Again, is not and was not a controlled demolition. NIST says so. This is a real controlled demolition. See how they don't even look the same? Tower 7 didn't come down due to controlled demolition. It was just simply falling debris from the World Trade Center that ignited fires in the office, and that's what caused the collapse. Even though it may be one of the first steel-frame skyscrapers to collapse just due to fire, but hey, stop spreading misinformation. It was not a controlled demolition. It was just fires. The government, the experts, and NIST, they all said so.
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad he put those together, because he's absolutely right. That didn't look like a controlled demolition at all.
Did you know that 10 days after the September 11th attacks, a man in Lower Manhattan started receiving voicemails from a phone that was buried under the rubble of the North Tower? His name was Aaron Keller, a former firefighter who lived just 5 blocks from Ground Zero. On the night of September 21st, his landline rang, static. Then a woman's voice whispering, "It's not over." The number traced back to a missing office worker, Denise Halpern, last seen on the 89th floor. Aaron thought it was a cruel prank until more messages came. Different voices, some crying, others whispering strange strings of numbers, names, and phrases like "the glass is cracking" or "they see us." He reported it to the police. Nothing. Phone company claimed the line was disconnected. Aaron recorded 17 voicemails over 2 weeks. Then on October 5th, the call stopped. The last message simply said, "They found the elevator. Don't let them open it." Aaron never spoke publicly about it again, but years later, a sealed elevator shaft was discovered during reconstruction, never shown in news reports, and the workers who found it were transferred, silenced, or vanished from public record. So, what did Aaron really hear, and what was waiting in that elevator?
I think it was a big steaming pile of... Yeah. While there were a lot of phone calls that were made before, during, and after that event, and even some calls from voids beneath the rubble, this is just utter crap. I did try looking it up. I tried, and I found 0. So that's what leads me to believe that it is just a story. I mean, it's a good one. It's creepy as hell, but I don't think it's true. On that note, I'm calling it for today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If you haven't already, please hit that like button and consider subscribing, and then come on back, because we're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things. It's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.
Coffee, spelled backwards, is EFOC, which is funny, because until I've had my coffee, I don't give e fuck about anything.